Robert Plank Show, episode 254, Red Zone Marketing. Make your marketing exciting, engaging, unique, focused, and helpful from the right messaging and branding with Maribeth Kuzmeski. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the program. Our guest today is Maribeth Kuzmeski, and she's the president of the consulting firm Red Zone Marketing Inc., founded in 1994. And she and her firm work with financial services firms, with entrepreneurial-minded corporations, and with salespeople on unique marketing messages, strategic marketing planning, recruiting, and business groups. So Maribeth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And so, having said all that, what is it that you do exactly that makes you stand out compared to everyone else?
Well, what we do at Red Zone Marketing, we have a firm that focuses only on business development. And we've been doing it for 20 years, and we have a long list of people who have changed their lives and their businesses because of the marketing focus that we've been able to help them implement. I mean, we don't do all the hard work. That's the sales part, but we certainly do the things that will allow people to get people to want to do business with them. And we think that that's a really important thing. The other thing that's really unique about us is that we are almost exclusively in the financial services industry on one of our sides of our business. And it has been something that has provided lots and lots of referrals for those of your listeners who know about, where does the best business come from? Well, word of mouth. Well, we're entrenched in word of mouth in several industries, but really in the financial services industry. So if you're a top financial advisor, you probably know of Red Zone Marketing. So that's kind of what we do, but we span across different industries as well.
But you're famous in some of those industries, so awesome. So you mentioned this thing, like business development and stuff like that. And so, like, what sort of services do you provide exactly?
Well, part of it is, and it really almost always starts with this, is the messaging. What is your message? What is your value proposition? What is the extraordinary story that you have to tell about your company? What is the way that you have your quote elevator speech when someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" What is it that you say? And those are the things that we do help firms with. Everything from your basic messaging all the way through to messaging for marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns. What are you going to say to get people to want to do business with you? And that's really the core of marketing. And marketing isn't working at all if nobody's selling anything. So it's got to end with that.
Awesome, good point. So just to make sure that we all kind of get our heads around this whole idea of like the messaging and the elevator speech and stuff like that, can you kind of walk us through with like maybe something you've done with one of your clients where your client came to you and said, I don't know what my messaging should be, or I don't have good messaging, and what is it that you did to sort of flesh that out?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. There's one, and I'll use a financial advisor example, but I think anyone who's listening to your show can understand maybe how they could use it in theirs. But this particular financial advisor is an entrepreneur, kind of a couple people work in his office. That's kind of it. And he really needed to spark up his business. And so I said, well, what's your value proposition? He said, well, what I say is we work with individuals and families and businesses, helping them with financial planning and investment management. And I said, well, what about that is compelling? What about that is unique? And is there anything that the person that you're saying that to, is there anything that makes them want to do something about it? And he's like, well, I don't know. I said, well, you basically said that you work with everyone in the entire world. And that's fine that you can work with everyone in the entire world. But the only thing that the person across the table wants to know is, can you work with me? Have you worked with somebody just like me before? And so we started to work on several niches with him. And one of the niches was business owners. He went to a lot of business functions. And so instead of saying we work with everyone, when you're at a business function with business owners, what he would say is we specialize. I'm a financial advisor at XYZ company. We specialize in working with business owners, helping them plan for their next level. In fact, to date, we've helped 60 business owners successfully move into retirement by selling their business. And one of the things that he found when people's maybe they're not ready to sell their business, but my gosh, how have you done that? And it starts the conversation, and then it becomes much more of a value proposition that the person you're talking to might actually be interested in. So it's taking it from the general to the specific, and solutions are always important, or even little snippets of success stories.
Awesome, and even sort of as you were describing that elevator speech, sort of what went through my head as you were explaining that is, in that case, it was almost like a template, almost like, well, we specialize in working with blank and helping them, take this action, and we've helped, X number of people do this sort of task. So when you're sort of fleshing that out, like, do you go to any kind of templates, or is it just like a matter of like what it turns out to when you keep asking the question, or how do you get from that sort of, I don't want to say lame, but sort of like the starting point where they kind of had an idea of what to call themselves. How do you get from that point A to the point B of now you have that elevator speech? Like, what's sort of your mindset in figuring that out?
Yeah, there really is a template, because a lot of advisors, including that one, have different, and a lot of business owners have different specialties and different target markets and different niches, if you will. And so we say that you need to have a pocket full of those. And so if you can help three different kinds of people, target markets, for instance, do you have a specific message for each of them? How do you design it? Well, it's really based on what you just said, the template formula, which is, I'm an XYZ, whatever you are, whatever you do, because I don't believe in being, telling crazy stories and doing elevator speeches that are weird like that. I mean, tell what it is that you do, but then tell who you do it with. So I'm a financial advisor at XYZ company. We specialize in, and if you start it with we specialize in, you have to say something after that maybe is going to be niche oriented or target market oriented. And that's where the success really comes in. The key with getting someone to pay attention is more about who you work with than what you do, especially if you do something that's not really all that compelling. Because if somebody, for instance, meets a financial advisor, they don't want to talk to that advisor. They think that advisor is going to sell them something. And so they're trying to get out the door. Meanwhile, if that advisor says something that's interesting, well, it changes everything. So think about that from whatever your business standpoint is. Maybe you have a really compelling and interesting business, but most of the time the businesses are the businesses. The interesting part is what you've done for other people in the line of that particular business.
Awesome. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And what I'm also sort of hearing from you, and let me know if I'm on the right track, but it also sounds like, so like people have to have like a few of these sort of a few of these answered, and you tailor it, I guess, to like what sort of like conference you're going to, or what kind of people are talking to, or like, I mean, can you sort of unpack or explain this whole idea of like it sounds like to me like people have to have maybe like a handful of these different sort of, I guess, angles at, or like we specialize in whatever, like specialize in different things, and you kind of have that at the forefront at whatever conference you're at. Like, am I sort of on the right track there?
Yeah, absolutely. We call it a simple, repeatable statement of value. We don't call it an elevator statement necessarily. That's what other people think of it. But with our clients, we call it a simple, repeatable statement of value. And it's designing that for the person you're talking with. And so you go, well, okay, so I'm going to go to an event, but I don't know who's going to be there. Well, you got to find out who's going to be there. And a lot of times these events, you can see who's going to be there, or it might be an event where there's going to be business owners there, or there's going to be, a certain kind of person there. And I think that's part of the research that is easy to do today, to figure out who's going to be coming to a meeting and who are these people and where do they work, and being able to go in with a really tight message, as opposed to we work with anyone and everyone, so you should be interested in working with us, which isn't very compelling. So it's focused on this simple, repeatable statement of value on whomever you're speaking with, and having a pocket full of them, literally. And the only way you can do that is to figure out, you got to look at your business and say, what is it that we do well? Who is it that we do this wellness for? And then how are we messaging that? And that's really how it starts. And, that from there, you can move into really doing more marketing campaigns and things like that. But the problem with some businesses is that they don't start with the core messaging that's very compelling to the people that they really want to buy their product or service from. And then it never gets any better from there. So all of your marketing efforts will be less successful if you do not have strong core foundational messaging. And so we look at the biggest mistake in marketing is not that you're not doing enough or spending enough, it's that you're not messaging yourself right. And it is the core reason that marketing fails.
I mean, good advice. So as far as figuring out, getting that messaging figured out, so with that financial advisor that you worked with, so you had to figure out like what this person he says that he specializes in, like how many of those kind of identities or things in your pocket did you have to flesh out? I mean, is it like just like three or five or a ton or like how many are we talking here?
Well, it just depends on who you really want to work with. I mean, obviously, the best scenario is we work with one niche and we work with this one niche really well, and we can tell the world that we do that. But a lot of businesses are, they can work with several different niches and across the board with lots of different people. The key is to pick some. We say 3 to 5, but it really depends on what kind of business somebody has or what they're trying to, what their end goals are. Because you might have a product or service that literally everyone in the entire world literally could and should buy. Well, you still have to break it into groups. Otherwise, people don't very rarely pay attention to those kinds of things. Now, every once in a while, you'll get some word of mouth that something will just take off and go crazy because it is so widely popular with a large group of people. But most of the time, things really start to gain traction because you've got a group of people over here. These physicians really like this product or service, and then it sort of grows. And that's kind of how we recommend people to do it. But every business is different.
Okay, and so when you're sort of or when you're looking at this or your clients are looking at like what kind of group of people am I talking to or who am I going to serve or how do I sort of flesh out this this messaging, this value proposition, are there some kind of like do's and don'ts? Because and the reason why I ask is like it sounds almost like it would be easy to sort of kind of go out of bounds and sort of either be like too braggadocious or kind of too obscure, like specializing too much. So, I mean, are there any kind of do's and don'ts to be known about like figuring this stuff out?
Yeah, you definitely you don't want to be braggadocious. That'll just turn people off right away. But you do have to say something that is going to get their attention. And so, how do we figure out what's going to get someone's attention? Well, if you look at your own business and you say, okay, so what do my clients or prospects really need? What is it that they all really, really need, or they're short on, or they know they need this, and why would they need my product to help them with that or service? And then it's focusing on that. So it's really understanding what people really, really need, and even more so, what they want. I often say to advisors, well, don't market financial planning because nobody wants a financial plan. They need it. They don't want it. So what is it about your planning service that they might actually want? And it's probably based on the outcomes and the things that happen. So you got to look at it case by case and figure out, okay, so what are the needs of this particular group? What are their wants? And what are the solutions that we provide? And that's where you start to weave the message together.
That's making a lot of sense. Like WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? And so I'm really sort of like curious and intrigued about how in this financial planner sort of situation, you took something like you said that's sort of people don't really want to know too much about it. It's kind of boring, and you jazzed it up. So do you have like any example of that, like some other client you had, or maybe either like the messaging was wrong, or where it was just like this like just super dry, boring thing, and you made it really exciting?
Well, I can think of a couple, and I can think of some situations that maybe I can share with you too. So, for instance, if they're a financial planner, and that's not really very interesting, and by the way, everyone is doing this now, so this might be a little bit old, but if you look on TV and see what the different financial companies and how they're marketing themselves, it's the financial advisor and the client walking on the beach because they're like family, right? And it's those kinds of things, but it's really about how we can take planning, for instance, in this particular case, and talk about the outcomes of the planning, talk about the peace of mind, talk about the holistic nature of cleaning up everything in your financial life, and talking about the benefits of that. That's really where where it becomes more compelling than it's. I mean, nobody wants to do a financial plan. So that's a topic that, boy, you really have to, unless something has happened to someone. So for instance, if they're going through a divorce, or their spouse has passed away, or some real tragic event, or even if they're just getting ready to retire, those are transitional events. And there's a lot of messaging that we can do around that. So it's not, we help you with financial planning. No, we help you take this situation that you are in, that is a very difficult situation, and we help ease your transition into the next phase of your life. And so it's things like that you use, and it depends on the target market. But yeah, you've got to really think through some of these things and how you do it. And if you look on websites of your competitors, you can see what they've done. And in some cases, they've done it really good. And you go, wow, I should just copy that. But the reality is, we don't want to copy what someone else is doing. We want to be and find our own sort of unique position. And I think a lot of the uniqueness for businesses is are the people that actually started the business, the founder of the business, the sales person, whomever is out talking about this particular business. They actually are the most unique part about this, because they're the ones that are presenting it. There's no one just like them. There's probably businesses that are just like the business or similar, but there's no one just like that salesperson or just like that founder. And that's where a lot of the core story comes in, because I believe it's about as Simon Sinek says, it's about the why. Why are we in this business? Why are we doing this business? And what's the purpose, and what's in it for you, Mr. Potential Client?
Awesome. And as I'm hearing you explain that, I'm hearing, like, not only to focus on those outcomes and model the competitors, but I'm just hearing a lot of like emotional kind of language, or focus on the emotional part, like that peace of mind, not just that logical stuff of planning your retirement and stuff like that. And so something you kind of mentioned in there is that like a lot of these spaces are getting more and more crowded. And so, I mean, is there sort of a solution to that? Like, if someone's in some sort of space and, like, it seems like everyone is really marketing aggressively, like, is the answer there to sort of use all those extra competitors as like extra modeling, or is the answer to kind of like drill down even more specific, or what should someone do if there's just a ton of competitors in some sort of space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really got to be about drilling down to facilitate, well, in the case of services marketing, and even in the case of product marketing, to facilitate the word of mouth, and to facilitate the referrals that come, because when someone else is telling your message and how great you are, it matters less that there's 100 companies that do the same thing that you do, but I'm getting a recommendation from this particular person. And that's where that becomes really, really powerful, is are those recommendations and the things that really help you stand apart. And you could have the same exact business model, the same exact product, but someone is recommending you. Why are they recommending you? It's probably because they like you, not necessarily because the product is so incredibly unique. So in those situations where you're really in sort of a commodity level business, figuring out, well, what is the most unique thing? Like what I said in the very beginning, what's the most unique thing about this business that we can start talking about? Because if we don't have anything to talk about, then no one else is going to have anything to talk about either. So we've got to figure out that unique thing. And it may not be that it's the product or service. It may be the people.
Interesting. And so if people are looking to figure out this messaging, trying to figure out, like, what's the unique thing about either the product or the service or the people, and they come to you, I mean, what do you provide exactly? Do you have like personal coaching, or like a done for you, or a blog or website? I mean, what do you have for our listeners today?
Well, the way that we do it, because if people come to us and say, okay, so I really need some help with our messaging, what they really want is for us to do it. And so that's what we do. We don't do any coaching around it. It's just, hey, tell me what you think we should do, and then let's discuss if we like it or not. And then let's go back and forth until we get something we really like. So we do the heavy lifting on the messaging, and we do messaging for websites. We do messaging for, brochures, for marketing campaigns, for the old school direct mail as well as email campaigns and things like that. But we really look at it from soup to nuts, which is what is the foundational messaging, and are enough people understanding what that foundational messaging is, or does it need to change? And so then we move on from there. But really, it's more of a consulting engagement as opposed to a coaching engagement.
Okay, fair enough. And like, is there some element of like if someone comes to you and if maybe if they're not sure about their messaging or the messaging is not quite right, is there that element to like you looking at their business from the outside and you seeing what those customers see as opposed to people who maybe are too close to their business? Do you see any element of that happening sometimes?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we do that all the time because in your office, people have a different, kind of a feel, or people in the industry have a different kind of a feel. But having an outsider perspective is really, really very important. Someone who can look at it and even do a competitor's analysis. And we do that a lot, where we might do an analysis and take a look at, well, what are your competitors doing, and how can we leg up you, as opposed to having you just sift into to the rest of the masses.
And just be forgotten, right? So where should people go to contact you and to start the ball rolling and to get this figured out? What website should they go to, and once they're on that website, what sort of things should they click on? Where should they go once they're on that website?
Right. So the place to go is redzonemarketing.com. That's I'm the founder of this business, and we've got a bunch of writers and designers and people that work for us. But the place you probably want to go to is consulting. And underneath consulting, it talks about some of our work in messaging. And yeah, we absolutely would and do review messaging. So if somebody comes to me with, hey, I just want you to take a look at my website and see if, it's something that we need to make some changes. Is this causing us any issues? And I may say, no, I think it's absolutely great. Or I may say, here are some things that you could do, and we don't even have to engage. And then if it looks like there's going to be some way that we can really help and make some meaningful difference in your business, then we engage. And that's how we usually do it. But I have an email newsletter called Marketing Audibles, and we just talk about marketing ideas every week, and it's as easy to get on it as to get off it. And you can see that on the website as well.
Awesome. So redzonemarketing.com is the place to be. If you want to contact Maribeth directly, click on that consulting tab, or if you're just there to subscribe to that Marketing Audibles newsletter, then go ahead and do that. And by the way, Maribeth, so it's called Red Zone Marketing. What's the reason for that? Because I think about like if I'm like parked in the red zone, I better like move the car and get my butt in gear. So what's the reasoning behind the red zone?
So I was raised by a grandmother that was a huge football fan. And so I grew up just talking football, not knowing that other little girls weren't talking football with their grandmas. Like we were breaking down the offense, the defense, and all sorts of stuff. But when I first started my business, I really wanted my grandmother to be with me. She had passed away a couple years before. But so I named the company in the spirit of my grandmother and all the conversations we used to have. So red zone is a football term. So I called it Red Zone Marketing. And in the red zone in football, where everything is, that's where everything is critical. You're within 20 yards of the end zone. You're either going to score, you're not going to score. And what happens in that red zone is absolutely critical. And I think that most businesses sort of sit in that red zone. And our goal is to move them from that spot where they've got stuff going on to the end zone more often. And so that's why we call it red zone marketing.
Awesome. Good answer. And that matches right up. I mean, you're the branding and messaging person. So, of course, Friends on Marketing would have a really cool story like that. So, thanks for sharing that with us. And thanks for sharing everything you had to share with us today. So, everyone go right now to redzonemarketing.com. And thanks so much, Maribeth, for stopping by.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at robertplank.com/iTunes and like us on Facebook at robertplankshow.com.